We're on handout 4.2, problem number 18. They've given us 3 points. These 3 points are the vertices of a triangle. First thing we need to do is sketch these in this coordinate axis so we can see what our triangle looks like. Point A is 0, 0 at the origin. Point B is negative 3, 5. Somewhere about right here. Point C is 3, negative 1. Somewhere about right here. Use those 3 points to draw a triangle. And that's going to be very obtuse. In other words, it's going to have one great big old angle and 2 small angles. It's going to kind of look like that. We're going to have to use the distance formula to find the lengths of these sides. It's been a little while since you've done that. I know you've seen this somewhere in high school. The distance formula is the square root of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. So if we want to find the length of side C, that would be telling me that I want to know how far it is from A to B. So I want to know the length of line segment AB. That is the square root of negative 3 minus 0 squared plus 5 minus 0 squared. Put that in your calculator. You got the square root of 34. Do not change it to a decimal. Just leave it the square root of 34. If you want to know the length of side A, side A is the distance from B to C. So it's the length of line segment BC. It is negative 3 minus 3 squared plus 5 minus negative 1 squared. Works out to be the square root of 72. Line segment AC is the square root of 3 minus 0 squared plus negative 1 minus 0 squared, square root of 10. I now know the lengths of my sides. I have a side, side, side triangle to solve. Be sure that you're good with all of these. Going on to the next part. Since we have a side, side, side triangle, we're going to find our biggest angle using law of cosines. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times the cosine of A. Substitute those values that we found for the lengths of these sides in place of A, B, and C. So I know that I have the square root of 72 squared equals the square root of 10 squared plus the square root of 34 squared minus 2 times the square root of 34 times the square root of 10 times the cosine of A. Just mark that out where it says round to 7 decimal places. We don't need that on there. That tells me 72 equals 44 minus 2 times the square root of 340 times the cosine of A. Subtract 44 from each side. You have 28 equals negative 2 times the square root of 340 times the cosine of A. divide by negative 2, square root of 340. Since you're looking for the angle, you're doing second cosine. Second cosine, 28, divided by negative 2 times the square root of 340. Let's put that in our calculator. Second cosine, 28 divided by, open parentheses, negative 2 times the square root of 340, close parentheses, got 139 degrees. It is very important that you put this parenthesis around this denominator. So on your handout or in your notes somewhere, be sure that you do that when you put it in the calculator. Angle A is 139 degrees. Now we have to find angle C, and then we can finish this thing up. Since we know that angle A is 139 degrees, here's where we are. There's 139 degrees. We know that side A is the square root of 72. We know that side C is the square root of 34. And we know that side B is the square root of 10. This is the amount of information that we have so far. We can now say that the square root of 72 is to the sine of 139, as the square root of 34 is to the sine of C. We can say that because we have this. And we're looking for angle C. So here we go. Sine of C equals the square root of 34 times the sine of 139 divided by the square root of 72. So, second sine, square root of 34, close parentheses, times the sine of 139, close parentheses, divided by the square root of 72. That tells me that angle C equals 27 degrees. Subtract from 180. Angle B equals 180 minus 27 minus 139, 14 degrees. I have now found all three angles. I'm finished with problem number 18. Number 19 doesn't take quite that long. The drawing represents the information given. Here's your little old golfer. This is 140 yards. This is 40 yards. This is a 105 degree angle. They want me to find how far it is from the ball to the middle of the green. I'm going to label this ABC so that we can represent our information a little better. We have a side angle side triangle. C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of C. This one's going to fall in pretty good. That's 140 squared plus 40 squared minus 2 times 140 times 40 times the cosine of 105 Put all that in your calculator and you got approximately 155.2 yards.